Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on the geolocations you are in. And we welcome you to the deep dive workshop on Proteus today. Um, my name is Samir, and I'm joined by the engineering team experts and also product and consulting team experts in this call. I'm the CPO of the company, and my uh, discussion with you today is to understand more about Proteus and how you can use this for multi-party business use cases. Uh, when I say business use cases, it's critical business use cases which we have come across with multiple customers. Um, and at the start of this presentation, I just wanted to highlight that we are using a technology which is called as Hyperconnect. This Hyperconnect technology allows us to connect your existing infrastructure, business users, and also your business partners, together into a streamlined process which you want to build to resolve a problem statement, which we have in supply chain or finance or logistics or banking or any of these areas. And we work with these customers around the world. Now, I start with what exactly is Proteus. Proteus is a multi-party database system, and it connects enterprises. It connects you to your suppliers, to your customers, to other business partners. If you are involved in services business, to your projects which you are implementing, it connects in a very versatile manner where you can share documents, you can share a specific business need, which maybe we come across some of this in today's discussion, in a level of security which is required and privacy required for each parties in the equation. So it is way different from the single database kind of infrastructure, which most of the legacy environments which we come across in organizations. And we work with very large organizations around the world to resolve very critical business problems. Either building new business models, new revenue models for them. And I'm pretty sure you have embarked on a cloud strategy within your organization. So we become a kind of a cloud apps connector, which works across different cloud products and different SaaS products, which you have within the enterprise. And we work in business critical use cases in supply chain, finance, sustainability. We facilitate trust and we verify identity of different parties and then connect them to work together as a part of the business. From a technology, and some of our friends attending today are from digital and technology arms. So we in fact enhance the cloud spending, which you have done this far, and we make it more efficient. We deliver more dollars in terms of value to your cloud strategy, which is a part of your forward strategy in terms of technology and digitization. Now with Gen AI, blockchain, shared computing, we are resolving problems which were unresolvable in the past. So we take up impossible business problems, which comes across to us, which had always been left to the emails and WhatsApps and the respective, legacy Excel sheets, which was exchanged between parties, and we make it into a business process, which can be utilized for organizations. And this is in fact helping them to collaborate, ecosystems. Collaborate between a supplier ecosystem, a customer ecosystem, more from a many-to-many kind of transactions, between them, and in a very secure manner, and you could take it forward. One of the important criterion is those guys who are attending the session today. You can ask your internal IT or internal digital team that are you a Microsoft Azure customer or not. We have found almost 80% of customers belong to Microsoft Azure. So if it's the case, or you have an SAP cloud strategy and you're an SAP cloud customer, then you can activate your service subscription and start using it straight away. So what it means is, like, you're not going to going after deploying or implementing a framework for you. You are actually consuming the framework which is already existing. So what it helps you to navigate is that you come into a framework, and it completely is available for you, on your day one. And then you just configure it quickly. And in today's session, we go into how this can be configured and how this can be used. And this configuration is like, maybe, we have a max size of 6 to 8 weeks, and you can get going with your with your transactions, which you wanted to resolve the business problems which you have. The usual suspects or the usual attendees of this workshop come from business. In supply chain digital teams, we find logistics teams, we find marketing teams and sales teams, distributor management teams. We have the digital teams from the CDO and good friends from the IT technology arms, who are looking at how fast, the business critical problems can be resolved in multi-party. And we also have lots of supply chain planners coming in. Because there is quite a lot of activity happening around, multi-party in supply chain, and we focus into supply chain because those are the most complex problems which we see, which we can resolve. And in collaboration, the amount of ROI is less than 6 months in terms of the deployment, when you do with our platform. So it makes it exciting to, be a service, to these business critical issues and supporting those business users within the environment. You can continue this session. Ours is a session which will take you through an experience of what functionalities. I know there are some existing customers who have joined today's call. We may show you some functionalities you're not using today, so you can start and jumpstart on those functionalities which are available in the platform. Those net new prospects who wanted to look at this as a solution for their multi-party, you can explore the different ways by which you can utilize Proteus Hyperconnect within your environment. And you can lead this into a 2-day certification. Some of the certified consultants who have done the certifications find it useful for you to configure yourself and advance in terms of your learning on multi-party systems for supply chain or sales or finance within your organization. So with that, a quick agenda for today's discussion is I will take the first 20 minutes to introduce the platform. I'll take you through a demo just as a feature functions. I will take you to an app. We have tons of apps within the framework. So I'll just show you an example app, and I'll show you the feature functions which you can use for your multi-party scenarios. And then we will deep dive into how these apps are configured. So what it means is, like, as a business user or a digital person or a technology person, you are able to appreciate, okay, this is what is my final product, this is how it looks like, and how I can configure. And when you configure, you probably bring in a new app, like you are working on Uber, and then you wanted to suddenly create a, maybe a app for of ordering your food, maybe Swiggy. Then you can create that, with the same feature functions available. And how do you do it is the last part of our discussion today, which is takes the lion's share of time in today's discussion. And then we will continue to take question and answers throughout using the chat. So if you have any questions, please post it there, and we will answer those questions as a part of this process. We are highly invested into this live webinar, which we do because we get a lot of requests from a lot of customers in understanding more about Proteus and how it can resolve the multi-party transaction statements, which comes across in import, in export, in sustainability, in sales, in distributor management, so where we differentiate with multiple parties and all. So we are here to help with this 2-hour session, and we will take you through that process. Now let me quickly dive into the platform technology assets in today's discussion, and where we belong and where we don't belong. So you will be aware that we have always wanted external data to come into our premise, and we process the data to make decisions. So traditionally, we integrate systems. We say, oh, we don't have that as a part of the process, so I need to integrate myself to another system, or maybe I ask for an Excel data and then I upload that into the framework. And these are actually shared data, which is required for you to run a business critical function. So a shared data is a part of a shared process. Now, if you're not a party to it, you don't need that data. And a good example is like I am receiving maybe sustainability reporting data from my procurement suppliers. So when I procure, I need more information about the sustainability of that procurement. So I need more data. I don't have that data. So how do I get it? So the current process, or maybe the past process before Proteus, is I ask for it and I get it in an Excel, and then I stitch it up, and then I go back to them and ask questions to them, and I deliver it back to me. The same happens for distributor management. We have silo systems which has been built, which are legacy systems, which we are asking somebody to come log in and get the data to me. And I keep the data, and I keep the information, and there is no collaboration, which happens between. So the collaboration is not supported within the framework, but it is supported in emails. It is supported in WhatsApp. So the process is not all over the place. You can think of it in sales processes, in distributor management, in manufacturing, in certification, in quality, in sustainability. We come across even in intercourse in finance for large enterprises around the world. So there are shared processes which needs to be defined quickly in less than six weeks. Is what helps us to deploy into a large customer use case. So these shared processes lead to shared transaction where I am doing and my supplier is supporting me with certain things, and then I am supporting my supplier. We are collaborating between, and we execute on that transaction. The shared data is the end result of all these things. So the traditional integration model, which has not worked, and the in-between models on bringing it into a database and asking everybody to come there and enter data into it and me receiving it, has also not worked. So can we think of a framework where we define a shared process with our business partner, with our departments, with our outsourced shared services, with our digital teams, and we try to make sure that these transactions which arises out of it fixes the most critical business problems which I have, and it contributes towards the data, and I share those data with my supplier or with my business partner. A simple example is if I need sustainability data for my sustainability reporting, it comes from the source. So the source data is actually a shared data. So if I define a process to get that data, not an Excel sheet and you send it via email, it is a process which starts with the supplier, and I get that into my frame and I use it for my manufacturing, and then I supply it across to my customers. This is a lineage process. There is a whole streamlined chain of activity which happens, and if I can have that configured and I can bring in people to that process, and then it becomes a transaction, and when I run the transaction I get the data. Now what part of the data is mine and what part can be shared is up to you. You decide. And what part is trusted between the partners, which can be shared between. We even have found certain customers using it for revenue models, which are renewed revenue models where shared data is supporting increase in revenues. It's not only optimization and efficiency in terms of sourcing, but in the other side, how you do the downstream activities with respect to it. So the whole fundamental of a multi-party framework in Proteus is about how a shared process, which is a business critical process, can be configured, and you can run the shared transaction, and you can have shared data, and it's super secure because whatever is need to be in secure frameworks. Like we work with 45 odd banks around the world. They have done enough transactions within the framework, and it's a secure activity which happens between the parties, and there is no technology involved in any of this. We have made it very light for you. You can configure from the business and you can start activating and start running the process. Now, in domain-specific framework, like I am assuming that I am a large enterprise and I have I deal with a lot of business partners externally. Now, being a large enterprise, which is enterprise A in this example, I'm just trying to, I don't want to use the fancy technology slides. So I'm just saying that if an enterprise A is dealing with like 500 odd external business partners, and if 20 of them I have a critical, shared data, shared process issue, and it's all in emails and WhatsApps and Excels and exchanging across, and you can put it quickly into a framework. That's Proteus. So imagine if enterprise A is existing with existing SAP environments, Oracle environments, or Aribas, or any of these systems, which are doing specific tasks. These processes are within the enterprise, and if you look at it, it is actually working very well for the enterprise for internal processes. But when it comes out into the space, so which is the shared space, this information, like for example, a PO is created, I PDF it out and I send it to my supplier, and the supplier is looking at and creating an SO based on that, and then sending it back, and then your data which which happens in that process, our suppliers are also sitting with a ton of systems at their end. So whatever is being sent from enterprise A to B, and the business partner has their own frameworks, and the version of truth here is his point of view, and the version of truth here is your point of view. Now, when I'm asking for a particular task, I can't ask him every time to come to my framework and then drop the information, drop the data into a system or a database which I give him. So how can we make sure that when different enterprises work together in their own point of views, a shared data process can come in and quickly resolve between these frameworks. Now, it doesn't exist in supply chain alone. In quality, in sustainability, we have found use cases in demand side, supply side, import, tolling, which is a subcon. Like I'm a subcon company and I wanted to outsource my, semi-finished goods production to somebody else, or maybe fabricate it somewhere and get it back. And how do I manage? How do I know the stock positions? How much visibility do I have on my secondary stock positions? How much am I going to receive? So there are so many things which we can think of and which we have come across with customers. So this is versatile. This is like how I can configure quick in terms of this shared space, which the space which exists between the entities. Now, banks also come into play here on financing. So you could bring your import bank and export bank. You can start the process. You can have transactions. You can digitize the entire framework using Proteus. Now, I can think of a lot of use cases in here. So I'm not going to dive into specific use case in today's discussion. I think our client directors would have spoken to you, earlier in terms of these use cases. We think of import process, think of distributor visibility, reverse logistics, and I've sent something to my customer, and my customer want to return it. So there is a return logistics, which needs to work. So and how do I make sure that my logistics partner, my end customer, and my transporter, which brings it back to my warehouse, is a frame which can be optimized. So we recently came across a case where intercompany agreement between the group and the subsidiaries, and the group and the subholding and the subsidiaries, a pre-agreement in terms of transfer pricing and from the manufacturing to the sales companies, and how this is executed. And when this gets executed, they are in multiple SAP environments, so the intercompany balancing becomes an issue, and how a chain of activity can come in and resolve that process. So we have seen quite a lot in terms of how we can fix it. So maybe I'll discuss the usual challenges which we come across. Sometimes it's numerous ERP environments. And leading to silos of data, and it doesn't actually match between A and B. So that's a departmental issue within a large enterprise. So there are disputes because they are different ERP. Either it is own companies, subsidiaries, joint ventures, or it is own companies with external partners. This is the usual case which can happen. A traditional process, EDI, integrate. So timing issues. there is a high effort and cost, so we have spent millions and billions of dollars on integration. So you find the many to many integration is not an easy topic. So how do you integrate on one, and then there is a bulging balloon on the other, and then you got to integrate there. How far you will integrate these without a process, which is something which need a fixture for it. And where does it lie? So you don't go home, you have manual processes. Wherever you come across multi-party transactions, in every organization around the world, we have seen the resources which works around it, the employees which works around it are the ones who are struggling, because they are the ones who are coordinating, calling them up and asking them for information. If the information has come, there is errors in it, there is delay in it, there is very low efficiency, whereas our management team is asking us to have immediacy in terms of reporting across to them. So there is potentially a large impact in terms of regulatory scrutiny in some of these, like quality, like financial closure, supply side, certifications for factories, business critical, business continuity planning processes. So we have seen quite a lot in there. And it's something which we have witnessed, from which we work with Accenture a lot, and we both have witnessed that there is high volume of multi-party transactions with disputes and reconciliation variances, which happens, and these volumes have increased after the COVID. There's been a gross disintegration of many industries, and proximity to production has become once again a way of looking at supply chain, not optimization of cost. So because proximity to the market, proximity to the regulatory framework in which it can work, the trade barriers between countries. So there is a high volume of multi-party transactions which is going into manual processes, and this is what can be fixed with Proteus. And if I have to whiteboard what we do in a very simple way, imagine you are this company, and there is a user within maybe distribution management, maybe procurement, and you have already built your SAP or any other environment for you to converse between the users within the enterprise. But there is no connectivity between user A99 to user A1, for example. Or maybe you have a process. Some of these processes are in Excel, and some are there which you wanted to optimize, which you can use. But if you look at enterprise B, there is another company, my business partner, my supplier, my customer, my bank, my logistics provider, my transporter, my export agency, my CHA, so imagine quite a lot in there, and my subsidiaries, my departmental users. So if user A1 wanted to have a relationship or a transaction with user B2, where B2 wanted to come back to A1, or B2 wanted to get an approval from user B99, and if it goes back to user A99, who gives frame to user A1. Now you can see that in all these places we come across multiple users in different enterprises trying to talk to each other. Now how do we do this today? We send Excels between, we have emails, we call them up, and in many a time the timing doesn't work. He is looking up into his systems and trying to answer our queries, whereas we are trying to look at their systems and trying to look across and then see what can happen. Now imagine if these transactions which are there, and trust it is real, it is something which is a monstrous amount of transactions, which leads to a lot of Excel frameworks in both ends, which we are keeping for our multi-party framework. We collaborate. Do we collaborate? Yes, we collaborate. How do we do it? I write an email, then I wait for it. Oh, I don't get a reply. Then I give them a call, and then try to understand. So this process is happening, and authentication of that particular, in many cases, it's a contractual framework between enterprises. So how do I go outside a contract? Will I say, oh, you're my friend, so I'm going to do something, a special favor for you? It doesn't happen. It always happens with a part of a contract, part of a document, part of a PO, part of an SO, part of a PI. Of course, we have a relationship. So there is an authentication of the communication which is required, which we are missing, and that's the one which comes across in disputes and returns, and which creates huge losses for companies. There was a Switch company, it's a global company, which the global supply chain guy was saying they write off $36 to $40 million euros every quarter on returns to their manufacturing, on their procurement. They have probably a 9 billion euro worth of procurement which they are running. So unbelievable amount of effort is wasted in terms of trying to recoup on it. So if we keep our line straight, and then we are able to communicate, collaborate, and we are trying to agree, disagree, we are trying to amend, we are trying to process, we are trying to run it, we are trying to execute it. So this process can happen. We can avoid those emails. We can avoid all those WhatsApps and the additional documents which we make as a part of that transaction, all those physical bout which we create between us. All the inefficiencies which happens with respect to I can go 25 different ways by which this gets in practice today. Now we can just push that out, and we can have the process take over the function. And in this context, just imagine you don't work with just one organization external to you. You work with maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of organizations. So look at it. If the same user, maybe user A2 wanted to communicate with the user in entity C, and this entity C, which is on tier 2 kind of procurement, go to entity D, and entity D has to come to C for certain activity, and then it has to drive back to user A3. Now this is and then probably it maybe entity C comes to B, and then it goes back to U3. Now how does this work today? Again, I'm doing an assumption in terms of the process, and I'm taking it through different parties in terms of the activity. So this is I have to put this in context of today's discussion. So Proteus is a framework, and probably one of the most unique framework. There is absolutely zero coding, absolutely zero technology, because we have resolved that for you. You can come in and run any amount of these processes, and in a much authenticated way in terms of the activity, and leading to a pile of a normal equation is our pile of documents. We've seen 300 odd documents for a single import cocoa into the company produces Cadbury's. So there's one shipment, it takes around 300 emails with multiple parties. So we have consolidated all that collaboration. There is no more emails. There is no more emails means when you are procuring for your supplier organization, there is zero emails. If that can be the target, that means with every transaction of procurement, there is a PO sent out, and the PO takes a process. The supplier, supports us with the related information, and all the collaboration which happens, between them can be routed. I'm not using email. I should not use email. I should not use any documentary stuff, any difficulty. I cannot, in fact, ship it from maybe Vietnam. I have to ship it from China. How do I inform? And how do I get the consensus? Because this is something committed as a part of my delivery into a flow. So there are decisions which needs to be taken in terms of the tariff changes and other stuff, which comes as a part of the execution process. So how do we do that? And the beauty is, I tell my teams always that if you can define, deploy, and connect and collaborate, it should not take more than 6 weeks. Now, if there is any business problem statement which anybody brings it into us, and then we have the discussion together, I always say that a problem statement which can be solved in 6 weeks, and customers start the transactions and start to use it. If it is not, we should not take it. Let them go and look at different aspects of it and try to build a monstrous environment, which is a coding and other activities which you do. So 6 to 8 weeks maximum, which is the time which you should ideally take to get it go, because Proteus can be configured in less than 1 to 2 weeks time. So it's about deployment time and connecting to the business partner, and then collaborating across and you can start very small with 2-3 business partners and start the activity going forward. So and then you don't need to sit with one. So if you have import, you can get to export, you can get to contract manufacturing if there is there, you can get to ESG side, sustainability. So so the same framework in Microsoft Azure, which is our services, helps you to do multiple rollouts within your environment. And we don't fix, like we are not there to just call a cab, so we are not a Ola or maybe a Grab or maybe the purpose is not that, so you call, you have an app, which you call a Grab or something, and then, you quickly have, you can create another app, so you look at your mobiles, I'm actually showing, maybe you may not be able to see me, but you have multiple apps, isn't it? So these apps are created from a framework. So that framework is Proteus, you can create multiple. So don't sit with one, you can quickly draw something in your PowerPoint and start working on it, and then you can create that within the framework, by which you will be able to, kick off and start doing it. So today's discussion is all about like how we do it. So we have worked with a lot of customers, some of these customers and what processes we ran. We can discuss more on it, so I will not waste today's time on it because I probably wanted to look deeper into the solution. So, there has been banks, large enterprises, small enterprises, manufacturing flows, a lot of networked banks, track and trace on provenance, sustainability. So there has been multiple, frameworks in which you can utilize the Proteus technology in your base. And we are somewhere here at the beginning of this discussion today. We are on a discovery, kind of a phase, when you look at it on a customer journey with this 2-hour workshop. And you can come with an early usage with a small app and then start the process, and then you can expand, and then you can get into more mature multi-connectivity kind of frameworks, which you can build within your enterprise. So we have a approach discussion, and we give a FOC evaluation. So if you come out as something, hey, this is a critical problem I have on multi-party, and is it something which is possible from your end to resolve? So we are offering a free 3 activity. Like, for example, you give it to us, we look at it, we look at the fitment of it, and we get back to you and say, oh, this fits almost 90%, and 10% is the workarounds, which we can look, and then you can go live with your multi-party use case, which you want. So if you want to import, you're sitting anywhere in the world, and listening to this, if you want to import digitalization, for example, I think you should go live in less than 3 weeks. Not anything more, so export, go live in less than 3 weeks. You put your structure very clearly and give it to us. We put an evaluation framework on it, free of charge to you, and you say, fine, go ahead, we wanted to do this, go ahead. It is like 3 to 4 weeks you're in. In a bit more complex frameworks, you go to 6 to 8 weeks, and then again, what is that? It's like 1.5 to 2 months we would have resolved, and you will be running with it, so it's as easy as that. And we support quite a lot of services with our expert panels, and we will get back to you in less than 2 days once you give us the framework. There is a separate team which works on it, so it comes as a part of today's workshop. And so with that, I probably wanted to jump into a quick demo. And what we wanted to start today is maybe I'm not going deep in, because I'll need a lot of time for that. What I'm going to do today is I wanted to start the activity by looking at what are the feature functions and the frameworks which are required for you to start a process. So I am currently I want to log into the system. So I'm going to log in as Alex Chan. So prior to that, maybe I wanted to pick up, maybe I just wanted to give a scenario. I don't want to take much time. So this is about import use case where Cargill is trying to import from PepsiCo Agri. And there is a whole set of activity, so if I have to demonstrate the whole, it's going to take me an hour. So I will skip it, and you guys can ask for it, and we can give you and support you with the demo frameworks. So and this whole activity, I'm not going to read it, is about import and the details which comes as a part of it, and you can track, you can do a lot of things. So I'm going to use this specific app today. So your mind has to work on, like the gentleman who is coming after me is going to show how you can configure an app. So that can be an import app, export app, sustainability app, Interco app. You can create the app which you wanted. So now today I just wanted to show the feature functions. so that when you start to look at my colleague, who is going to demonstrate on how the deep dive into the system and how you can configure, you can take a look at it and say, oh, this is how it was configured at that point. That's the objective of the next 10 minutes. So I'm going to use, when you look at it, there is a subscriber, which is Cargill. So for example, if Wipro is a subscriber, or maybe Hindalco is a supplier, or any of the guys, Mondelez is a subscriber, or any of the subscriber, they can invite existing business partners, or they can invite net new business partners. And in this case, there is a CHA, there is a bank, there is a logistics, and other business partners, and which you can bring in. So you can share business partners, or you can bring in business partners quickly. So in our case, the first thing which I wanted to go in here is I'm going to log in as Alex from Cargill into my framework, and I just wanted to see. I want to see I'm Alex Chan from Cargill, Singapore. So I wanted to. I'm running my PO or import process. So I have a set of functions on my out here, and I'm going to use my supply chain visibility function. And there are multiple, even you can go down to shipment, import logistics, and export logistics, etc. But I'm going to remain, just for the sake of showing the example, I'm going to go into a PO, and I'm going to show you the different frameworks of the PO side. Now, before going there, the first step when I come into the framework is I need a business partner to be invited into my frame. So I just want to check if my business partner is in it or not. So yes, PepsiCo is there in it, and maybe I'll use Maersk or DBS Bank as other business partners. So I have PepsiCo in here, or I can create a new business partner, or I can upload from any environments, and I have all my business partners out here. That's the starting point. And I can fix the authorization for my staff. I can have an org management framework. I'm again not going to go deep. So Cargill has marketing, logistics, different divisions, and you can create different users with respect to it. Or you can look at the overview, or any new subdivisions and all. So if you go down, you can create the users like you're creating in SAP or any other systems which you have within your framework. The same way, if I go to role, it's a very detailed role setting process, which we have. So there are different permissions, which you can give from different frameworks. So do you need to give edit, view, delete, create? So you can create different roles, and then within those roles on master data, and as well as app administration, on business partner, on documents. So there is a lot, and also on the product side. So if you go down, you can look at KYC document types. I want to give payment terms. Does he has access to the payment term, or does he not have access to the payment term? Industry type, regular, and does he have authority to sign a contract? Does he has authority to approve inbound transport denomination? So you go into your process fixing. We already ship certain roles as a part of our software, so you are able to use any of that, or you can make adjustments to it, and then you are in. So there is nothing more which you need to do, and then you can go create your PO and start the transactions with your parties. So here is a PO. I can create a new one. So I can import a purchase order from SAP. I can look at what purchase order which I need to improve, bring it from SAP, and then I can start the process. Or I can create a new purchase order, or whatever. So in this app, I'm going to run from PO all the way to financing, for example. So I am going to create a PO from Alex across to Agro, Parlay Agro. So maybe I'm going to pick up, I'm not going to create one, because in the interest of time, I'm going to pick up one of the POs, out here. Maybe I pick up this PO, and or maybe this one, yeah. And then I go into the detail, and then it had automatically brought in the PO detail or the PI detail across to me. And you can see the small cursor here. I can, actually I can communicate with each other based on these frameworks. See, it says Alex is saying, shipment team, please prepare for container booking once PO is approved. So they are internally communicating, and I can also externally communicate with somebody, or internally communicate with ourselves. and means I am communicating with my colleague, and I have a team working here. I can internally create those users and I'm communicating with them, or I can externally communicating with my supplier, and I can create amendments, I can create compliance, of each of that, which are all functions. And you see a lot of functions on this side. You can see an entire activity log, where you can see what has happened with respect to this PO. You can go to the table view and it shows you extreme detail audit out here. That means there was a PO which was done as a copy, and then edits were done, and then there was an upload and attach of documents, and then there was an approval by someone initiating. Why do we collect this? Because we are going to the source levels for every collection. So all the process need detailed audit for multiple parties collaboration, which works. Now this is Alex's point of view in Cargill. Now the other guy who is PepsiCo agree can't see up to this detail, because he is a business partner, so he will see what is externally shared with that person. We call it distributed authorization concept, which we use for that. In this case, look at upload and attach document. So I go there and I want to see, there was a document uploaded at this phase. So this is the stage that it was, and you can see the current version, which is like it has moved past the stage and you have reached here. So you're able to track the entire lineage of that particular framework autonomously, so that you are able to recall what happened at each point of time, and what was I communicating with the other person, and what happened at me to my supplier, and supplier to another the second level tier 2 supplier. And if I have to collect it from the farm in terms of my sustainability requirement, from farm to the supplier to the mill to me, and how this process happened. Now, we come here and probably we want to see the document, and yes, there was a purchase order communication, which was there, and I want to look at that document, and here is it. It says it's a purchase order. So all your documentary framework which you use as a part of your process can be automated completely from end to end. And if you go back to the activity log, you are seeing again, a different stage. Oh, there is another upload which has happened. I want to go and see it. So there are different ways by which you can see it. I go back to my and I'm going to, I'm going to select this one, and I can see it in my complete provenance tracking process. So here is my activity log. This is like all in one screen, and I'm able to expand the view, and I'm able to see the detail. I can come back and look at the detail. I can go back to my provenance. I can see there are documents which are created in DFC, which is Digital File Cabinet, which has a backend component called a CDA, which is Cognitive Document Automation, where you can use AI to read a document and automatically use that for your purpose within, so that you don't make any errors in terms of entry of any information into the system. So there are a lot of functions like that within the activity. Now let me take a PO which is in process, and I'm going to see the detail, and I'm going to look at what actions. So I can add some comments out here for this one, and it says that I'm going to buy, and I'm going to buy from PepsiCo food, and I have my buyer detail, which is Cargill, and I have goods which are there, and my shipment detail, and probably it says free on board, and probably I wanted to look at look at the activities which has happened with respect to it. So I want to have an internal communication saying that should I retain FOB, so FOB, or I should change the same, which is like I'm having an internal communication. So this creates a notification to the subsequent party, and it goes ahead. Yeah, ideally it has come back to me, asking me for the same. And then there is a LC at site, so there is a payment type. So maybe I want to, again check, with the finance user, finance, please advise on the same. Can I go ahead? So, this is like a transaction, which takes the process of execution. This is outside SAP. This is outside Oracle. This is outside every environment, because I am in the documentary part of it. I am in the goods flow part of it. I am in the financing part of it. I am in the, external parties point of view part of it. So now I can save this, these comments which I have entered, which is already there. If you go to the comments, you can see this. Please confirm the price is right. Go down, is the quantity fine, etc. Which comes in. So I go to internal, and here is my comment which says finance please advise, and this has gone to the other party. If I log in as the other party, then you will be able to see that framework out there. Now let me just go quickly into PepsiCo, because that's a different user. Imagine Cargill is sitting in Singapore, and there is a user from Cargill which we saw, and he has sent this for procuring from PepsiCo. So you can see the subsequent framework of PepsiCo. Now look at PepsiCo, and he also get a system for himself. Like if you're in supplier management, you are not only giving a supplier interaction process, you're actually offering your supplier with a framework for them to start activating that entire collaboration with you. So it doesn't just end with, hey, this is my PO, you give me something, or this is my PI, you give me, oh, these products are agreed, or it doesn't end there. You're actually starting the collaboration. You're offering him a framework. So look at this case. Our subscriber is Cargill. Our subscriber is not PepsiCo Agree. So when they have logged in into our system, look, I just want to see the differences. Go to app administration, go to org management. See, they have created their own org. It is very different from that org. So what is this? What is Proteus? So there is a different version. These are not different systems. These are not different SAP environments or anything. These are process frameworks, which the supplier is able to create their users. And probably, I come here and sales, and I want to create a user, and I want to create my own user. So our supplier can create their users, and then they can collaborate within for supporting you. They can support, maybe upload from an Excel function, so they wanted to drag and drop an Excel and then start the Excel function upload, or they have an SAP system which they wanted to bring in and start the process, so there are multiple ways by which they can utilize the framework. And if they need tracking and provenance from their farmer, so they can start activating that, and then go and track for their farmer to their Asian. So a lot of food companies right now, a lot of rubber organizations on EUDR, which is the European Union Deforestation Regulation, is something which requires deep levels on geocoding on locations on where this happened. So these geocoding locations, need to be collected with the respective POs and manufacturing, and finally supported with the export process to the end customer. And this is a process which is coming up on a bigger scale, which is coming into the applications which we have now. Apart from integrations in this, let me go to my business side of it. So I go to my purchase order, and I want to see, oh, there was a purchase order sent across, and probably I want to take a look at it, and I want to see the detail. And it says, PepsiCo is the seller, and the buyer is Cargill. So I probably wanted to, look at what had been the communication between. So there has been a communication which has said, is the quantity fine? Can we increase to 1011? So Alex has asked him something. See, this is an external ask. So I can go and reply this, based on the status at which we are in. So I go to agent and I say I want to add comments. Yeah. So then I go down here and I see my external comment, and I look at it and I select external, and I wanted to say, is the quantity fine? Can we increase to 1100? I am not able to ship from Vietnam. Is it okay to ship the same from Shenzhen? Excuse me for my typo. I'm actually sending this across to my party, which is on the other side. I'm not saying this is the function. I'm just showing you a bit of how these interactions happen. Which is a part of the solution, which I like a lot, and my customers, always come back and say, "Oh, this is such an awesome framework." So this guy has already sent this across, and then if I come to Alex out here, so this guy is Alex, isn't it? So maybe I go down and yes, this is Alex, and this guy is so maybe I lifted. This guy is James from PepsiCo. So these two guys are in conversation in terms of execution of a PO. So I'm at Alex right now, and I don't know whether I picked up the right PO. Maybe I go to the listing, and which was the one, I don't remember. This is the one, I don't know. I'm just picking up, maybe to PepsiCo. So I'm going to pick up this one, and I'm going to look at it, and I'll be able to see it. Please confirm the price is right, finances, etc. Is the quantity fine? Can we increase to 1160? And he has sent across, and he obviously will get the should I retain the FOB which I have entered before, and obviously I need to get the results out here, and I'm able to collaborate with the party which is there. So maybe I go down, and is the quantity fine, and ideally I'm able to see this out here. So, and where is it, out here on external, and then I can start to communicate externally with the other party. So I think so this happens between both the parties at all scales. So the beauty is, like, if there is a conflict on any of these fields, I can actually dive down to that particular field and work on it. Similarly, there is compliance, which happens between the different documentations, which is a PO to every document which comes into play in terms of the process. So I go back to Alex, and then there are a number of functions out here. So when you see the actual app being built today in front of you, just keep in your mind in terms of what processes which comes into play. And similarly, there are a number of other functionalities which you can utilize as a part of this process. And you will find it a lot of configurations which comes in. You can configure your master data within your activity. There are a number of master data frameworks on products, on country, which is all integrated to SAP frameworks which you have. And these are the aspects of all multi-party transactions which comes into play. So this is a slide on like how we integrate with SAP and how we work with SAP. So before we dive into the detailed technology, this is something where we use SAP blockchain connector, so which is something which is a co-innovation. We use our own connectors, which is called as BC Link. So if you are using SAP for your procure to pay kind of process, we come in as an add-in terms of your external patching, whatever processes on physical documentation, goods flows, managing the multi-party, managing the bank financing process. So there are a number of things which we come into play in there. So this is just a small example of how you can think of a communication and integration strategy with your business partners. What does it do? It actually seamlessly connects you across with your suppliers, and you don't show them what they need not see from you. You can always see what need to be showed to your business partner. And whether it's a PO, SO, financing, GR, GI, so all connectivity can be organized within the BC Link connector. Now, when you work towards that collaborative framework, we have seen in most of these cases, like you are one, either a subsidiary to another, or you are one large customer working with multiple suppliers. Different scenarios which comes into play. This is an example of a PO and entire process to invoice and payments. So we are able to have a very seamless, efficient process between the parties. We are giving both the parties in a point of view into a framework, and the seamless line which is drawn between the process from one end to the other, where an existing framework on manufacturing like SAP may come into manufacturing and contribute. There can be a manual contribution, there can be an autonomous contribution. So this all comes together in a very seamless kind of a flow. So we all, when we work together, it is better that frame of flow is known. And as an enterprise, I'm going to benefit a lot in terms of my efficiency increase, my margins increases in terms of my cost factors, because I'm getting faster movement of my goods, appropriate critical timing in terms of my achievement, delivery to promise. DTP is big time, on-time delivery, happening at the manufacturing floor, the procurement, the export process, the import process, the management of the entire supply chain gaps, which comes into play on a bigger scale, on sustainability, all these things, we are able to structure the activity. Now, the next part of our discussion is we're going to look at deep into the technology. Shine is going to help me with another 20-25 minutes of that, and then again it's business conversation. So stay back, because Hari is going to take it up from there and going to go deep into showing you how these apps get created. Because none of the aspects of what you saw here, this is just a system, isn't it? So it can look very different, so there is reconciliation, there are exception insights, audit, there is configuration. If you look at financing the transaction, it's completely different. So so this is like I have access to some of these apps, so I'm seeing it. So you can have the entire look and feel, and what is the context at which you need to look at any of these structures, and what you need as a part of this process, what actions should be appropriately coming in to drive you through from one end to the other onto the entire process from procure to pay. In terms of this app actually takes care of the entire process from procure to pay, and how does it work, and so that's like this app. And then when you see the presentation today, in your mind just think that, okay, these feature functions are actually getting built or maybe configured by Hari. So you will get to understand that it's so easy to configure this. So your business rules, your different processes, your how it has to be running as a flow, each part of that, the exit entry points in terms of that, so that's what the last part of today's discussion is. Yep. Over to you, Shine. You can take it from here for the next 20 minutes, on the technology, 20-25 minutes, and then Hari is going to follow through with how we actually created this app. Yep, go ahead, Shine. Thank you.
So I believe everyone was listening to the concept layout by Samir in terms of how Proteus as a platform enables multi-party interactions in the context of our customers. And now we would definitely unbox what lies beneath the platform called Proteus. So the next 20-25 minutes we will definitely have a detailed look at what were some of the drivers that actually drove us to create such a platform for our customers. Second, how do we do that? And Hari is going to follow that with a very detailed demo of configuring a product for you. So I think from an objective standpoint, it was pretty clear to us. We were trying to gauge, the capability from an internal team perspective versus a customer perspective. So we definitely wanted to build a platform that our customers can seamlessly and intuitively consume without compromising their strengths. That was definitely one thing on our mind. At the same time, we were cognizant of the criticality in terms of pushing apps in a very agile and rapid manner, which means we wanted to enable this platform for our teams primarily to build products and solutions on it with ease. So we were trying to see how to balance these two strengths from two different perspectives. So one thing which we were very clear in terms of our interactions with all our enterprise customers, we knew finding a standard product to match every single customer requirement was not something straightforward. We were cognizant of the fact that there were variants in customer processes, even if it was about doing the same thing in multiple enterprise context. We knew there was lack of trust adoption in new solutions, including IS compliance, information security compliance within an enterprise. We knew we need to have the right flexibility to participate with minimal change management. And more importantly, we wanted to be very agile and give a very seamless experience when it comes to digital transformation that our customers were looking at. We didn't want to disrupt what they had, but we wanted to fill the right gaps with Proteus. And of course, the time to market was very critical. We wanted to ensure we were very aggressive in terms of delivering solutions at scale and speed. Now, if you really look at the visual representation there, the idea here is Proteus connects the dots, helps connects the dots between. Uh, so the dots would be like process gaps, system gaps that you would have in your enterprise space. So as the illustration suggests, Proteus could be the rocks within the jar, and if you have systems already in place which resemble the second picture, we would be the center between the rocks. Proteus can still fill those gaps for you when it comes to intersystems integrations, and when it comes to process integrations in the context of your enterprise landscape. And even if you have very fine-grained systems, there would still be gaps, as indicated by the last image. We would be the water, where your systems would be the pebbles and the sand. So it was very clear how we need to deliver value to our enterprise customers. So and it meant very clear to us that we need to be enterprise ready when we put a platform on the market, uh, beyond the delivery speed of that we achieve internally for our team. So the first and foremost, we wanted this to be an operating system. So Proteus, as the name suggests, is actually it's an operating system, and it has its own software development kit. It is accompanied by an app store with a lot of apps spanning supply chain and multiple other domains. So the idea here is we wanted to enable application development in the context of our enterprise customers, which means all those apps that would be developed needs to be run on one core underlying platform, which would act as an operating system. And that's what Proteus does. All the products which would be apps for us are run on Proteus, and it is very similar to the Play Store or the App Store, where you have applications being developed and deployed, and ultimately it's your Android OS or your iOS, which essentially runs these apps for you. So the Proteus acts in a very similar manner. And second and foremost was having IS compliance for you, whether when it comes to data, when it comes to permissions, when it comes to setting up your organization, when it comes to setting up users with the right roles and entitlements. And then of course we need to give flexibility for you to have very close systems integrations, which means, as I earlier said, the Proteus would fill those process gaps, which means it would connect your systems in the context of your multi-party enterprise process, and it can seamlessly bridge those gaps for you. Now, how do you have trust with all these things? This is where a decentralized blockchain network would enable for you. So enable trust, across your process boundaries, whether it's your enterprise or your the enterprise context within your business partners IT infrastructure. So the idea here would be not to have a centralized application where we would want to leave everyone to trust us, but rather to have a decentralized blockchain network where these applications would be deployed, and you would have very seamless business partner connect enabled by this network, and with very seamless business partner management and onboarding facilitated by Proteus. So how did we break this whole value proposition? It is fairly represented in a very straightforward manner in this illustration that you see. So we have three components. One is a platform, which you see on the right hand side. We have the product, and then we have the solution. So the platform, what we call as Proteus, in totality, has multiple components, sub platforms or sub components, where one component would help configure your products. There is actually a runtime I already mentioned about the operating system concept. And then there are a lot of auxiliary services that support Proteus in terms of deploying applications. Then you have the UI framework, which is a framework used to generate user interfaces using which your enterprise application users interact. Uh, and then there's a test automation framework built into the framework. And then we have the DevSecOps, which means we have very clear deployment pipelines using which we create and deploy applications at scale. Now, the leftmost triangle that you see is a product. So for us, a product is essentially a smart contract, what we call as a smart contract, which means it would encompass the domain model, meaning it would have all those assets that are included in the domain model that you deal with, and all the rules governing the assets, all the flows governing the assets, all the events associated to user interactions on the assets, and then you have identities, roles, and permissions that govern the way users interact with the assets in the context of your domain. Now, this is the way we structure information, and this is the way the information is used to create configurations that is fed to Proteus, so that it knows how to manifest the application or your product. Now, the topmost layer that you see, which is a solution layer, is actually a product customization and personalization layer on top of product. The idea here is as I already said, there's a lot of variance in customer process. You pick a process pertaining to a customer, and then you are free to customize it and build new products on top of it. Now, I already said Proteus has a few subsystems. Now, these are the 4 subsystems that Proteus has. One is Maverick, second is Nexus, then you have Indus and Lighthouse. Maverick helps generate responsive UI so that users can interact in multiple form factors. Nexus helps with continuous integration and deployment of your products. And then Indus is the platform or the subsystem using which you configure your products, which you would see in a bit. And Lighthouse is the test automation framework. Now, to deep dive a bit onto Proteus, Proteus comprises of 36 plus system components. So just to have a quick peek at some of those. So Indus, I already mentioned, this is the subsystem using which you configure products. So we will see how it is done in detail. Now, the runtime has a few components. One is a workflow manager. Those are so essentially every business workflow is modeled as a state machine, and the workflow manager manifests the state machines, the state transitions based on user actions. And then you have the rules evaluator. So we have configured extensive rules, all the business rules in the context of state machine or state transitions within the state machine. So there would be prerequisites that need to be met in the context of every user action, enabling a potential state transition, which means this is the way the process gets to get accomplished. Now, the cache manager is actually a technical component, so you would need to load all those configurations onto your memory, so that your application performs in a much better way. So this is going to help with system performance and accessibility. So that is a component that helps that. Now you have the decentralized identity and access manager. This component really helps with setting up your identity provider. So it could mean integrating with your AD. So we have role-based access control and attribute-based access control on the platform, and it uses open standards like OAuth, OIDC, and single sign-on. Now we have a decentralized organization manager, which means you could set up your organization, you could set up your divisions within in the same way, like how your organization is set up, and you can assign roles-based access control in the context of this organization setup that you do. Now we have a decentralized document manager, so this is going to help with document management, and you get to bring your own storage. Uh, Today, we use Azure, storage for document storage. Now you get to configure, if you have access to any of those services, you get to configure that. We also have cognitive document automation module, which is a module that helps with data extraction. We have integration manager BC Link. I already mentioned systems integration is very key, so that we really augment gaps that is there in your enterprise multi-party process. Now, task manager, scheduler, your off-chain data access controller, those are technical components using which you get to schedule batch jobs, you get to access your off-chain database. Those interactions that doesn't that needn't go to the other party, that in your business process, all your internal processes and all your internal data is persisted on the off-chain database. Now, the collaboration controller, Samir, as part of his demo, has already shown how seamless it is to collaborate with your peers, meaning within your organization and also the other parties in a business partner context. So we have P2P internal as well as external collaborations enabled on the platform. Now, compliance controller, there's detailed audit trail and logs available. The provenance of every interaction is being tracked on the platform. So the compliance controller module's responsibility is to ensure this information is persisted on the immutable ledger, and it's transparently shown in the context of any regulatory needs. Then you have the blockchain access controller, which is pretty much the way how you access. We use R3 Coda under the hood. And we have document generators, provenance tracker. I did mention about it. There are contextual help managers that's going to help you navigate, the application. Alerts and notifications controller, document viewer, and business partner management is pretty seamless on the platform. And then you have master data management as well, depending on the domain that we operate. Maverick, I already mentioned, it's pretty much what enables a responsive user interface on multiple form factors for you. Now, CodeApp, which is a DApp or the CodeApp, it has a consensus engine. It's a notary-based consensus engine, and we have the product meta smart contract. As I said, every single application is a smart contract, and it is manifested in the context of your product. Now, Lighthouse, I already mentioned, this is a test automation platform subsystem that we have bundled along with Proteus, meaning it helps with every release. It helps to test the flows in a very automated way. Off-chain database, I already mentioned about it. On-chain ledger is where is the immutable ledger where inter-party transactions are stored. And Nexus, as I already mentioned, is the CI/CD tool that we use for deploying products to specific customers, for managing subscription and tenant administration. Now, how do we leverage Proteus? So it's actually a 5-step process when it comes to building products on Proteus. First is about you actually do business domain modeling, meaning you understand what is your business domain, and then you list all the business processes, events, you lay it out in simple BPM and diagrams, and then you actually list all those entity data transformation definitions, meaning you need to create new assets from old assets. You need those data transformers. Information from one asset needs to flow to the other asset. in a very seamless way, you need this mapping. And then, like, you have the UI configuration. This definitely helps you how you would want the UI to manifest, whether, like, you would want information to be listed, whether you would want information to be represented on a grid. So all of those flexibilities and configurations is being done using the UI config. Then you have the entity-driven document template definitions, meaning any assets, say, for example, you create a purchase order, you need to print your purchase order in a specific template. That's a capability that the platform will give. Then the QA certification product, I already mentioned about how we use Lighthouse to do that. And then, of course, like, the manual handoffs with customers in the context of UAT and release. So let's have a quick look at how we model a use case, and then I would hand it over to Hari to show you how he uses this modeling context to create configurations on Indus explicitly. So the use case you would have seen, like, the demo that Samir had taken. We use the use case that of a purchase order, where an importer, you can see as the business flow, process flow diagrams representing. There is actually a swim lane for importer, there's a swim lane for exporter, and then an importer can create a purchase order, he can then draft it, and then he can submit it for an exporter approval. Now the exporter, as part of the happy flow path, he can approve it and it goes for shipment. But if he has like, questions, he can route it back to the importer with comments asking for potential amendments to the purchase order, or like, seeking clarifications in the context of that process. So this can be a back and forth process as shown by the bi-directional arrows. And then once the importer fixes all those amendment requests from the exporter, he amends the purchase order and sends it back again, and that's how the process continues. Now, how do we actually translate all of this into configuration components? So essentially, as you see here, what we do is we use semantics from behavioral driven development. So the semantics, as illustrated here, is that of representing a use case scenario in using three constructs: the given, when, and then construct. So idea here is the scenario one, PO initiation by an importer, which says an importer can initiate the PO, or the importer only gets to initiate the PO, and he provides all the necessary information pertaining to a PO. So whether, like, there are two traders, what we are saying is, given there are two valid network parties, party A and B, if party A, or when party A initiates a purchase order to party B, a PO is initiated. So definitely that state is very, very clearly represented. At the same time, the person who initiates, who is party B, he becomes the importer, and party B becomes the exporter. So the business rule in that context is very clearly captured here in the context of plain English, using these three semantics or schematics. Now scenario two, okay, now that a PO is initiated, following up or like, continuing from the previous scenario, and all necessary information is provided, and when importer submits a PO is sent for exporter approval. So if you can relate to the previous process flow diagram, it literally mirrors the process flow here. And then once a PO is sent for approval, scenario 3 would be the end of the happy flow path. And if the exporter is fine with everything, he approves and shares the PO, and PO is approved for shipment creation. Now, what are the alternate paths, which is represented by scenario 4? Once the PO is sent for approval, and if an exporter is seeking amendments or like posting certain comments, he will send it back to the importer for amendment, or like response to some of his comments. Now scenario 5 is, okay, when the PO is routed back for importer amendment, and when importer initiates PO amendment, okay, now that the importer understood he needs to amend certain things as requested by the exporter, then he would do the PO amendment. So scenario 6 would be, once he does the PO amendment, then he can approve and share and send it for exporter approval. Now it goes back to scenario 3 again. So you can see that, all those process loops, the back and forth interactions are very well represented in a very textual way here. Now the other scenarios, what you see on 7 is, when it is initiated for importer and he doesn't decide to do an amendment, he can post a comment back to the exporter, which means it is again going back for exporter approval. So all those scenarios that you see in the previous diagram is very clearly represented here. Now, what is the benefit that we get once we represent this? That is what you see on the right hand side of the box, the configuration mapping. So we know the asset that we are talking about or dealing with in this context is a purchase order, and the information that is being entered would be the product info, pricing info, and shipment info. And the contract parties are party A and party B in this case, and contract party roles are importer and exporter in the context of this product. Contract actions would be because the importer initiated a PO, he submitted it, he gets to send a comment. All those becomes the contract actions for us, and then the states would be what is represented in the given and the then aspects of all these representations. So a PO is initiated, PO is sent for exporter approval, PO is requested for amendment. All of those become states for us. So this is the starting point of in creation of a product, where we break up an entire problem domain into these many constructs, and we start feeding it onto Indus, which Hari will demonstrate to you. Now, to see all of these thing in action, we have created a quick animation. So I'm just clicking here to. So based on this action, it goes from the state transition happens. And the C icon implies like, an inter-party interaction, specifically CODA interaction on the ledger. So, and all those other interactions would be off ledger. So as you can see, like, the entire process flow diagram, which we saw earlier, has been translated to a state machine with all these constructs very clearly represented, and which will become the configurations for us for Proteus. So I'll now hand it over to Hari, where he would demo these in detail. Over to you, Hari. Thank
So I'll just give you a sneak peek on our intelligent tool called Indus, which is integral part of building the product, end-to-end product altogether. So if you want to have a detailed session, you can always opt in for the 2-day workshop, which you can learn and train on Indus and how you can build a product from there. So this is the login page for the Indus tool here, and then the user logs in. So we usually call these users as modeler, who are basically a business analyst or a product owner or product manager from a certain enterprise. They can build their own apps from the platform itself. So we usually call them as modelers, so that they can model their own products and stitch together different workflows and use cases in the platform itself. So as you can see, there are different components available within this particular tool, starting from the subscribers and the global partners and the business partners onboarding. So this is where we manage all the enterprises who are part of that particular organization or their network. So they can manage all these subscribers and the business partners within the platform. And we'll have the option to onboard them in a different manner. And likewise, I'll just straight away go to the Indus tool altogether. And right now we have two aspects of Indus. Like when we create the product as such, which is what we call as a product building activity, and then we can just straight on move to the deployment of this particular product, which we created as part of the product building activity. So if you click on the customers list, you can see all the customers here, which we have created the product for. We can tag these product to each customer so that we can easily identify which are the product associated with each customer. For the demo purpose, I have created a demo customer here, and if you click on that particular demo customer, you can see which are the products you have tagged or created for that particular customer. And as you can see, there is an option to create a new product from scratch, or you can create a product from an existing one, which is basically we are cloning that particular product and building on top of it and doing all the customization there. So if you have a certain products which has a similar behaviors, we can usually go for the create a product from an existing one, which will help us to copy all the features and functionality which is already created as part of that particular product. So for this demo purpose, I have created a sample product here, and if you can click on that particular product, you can see the workspace which we are going to work on. So as you can see the product name, the version of that particular product, and whether it is a draft version or a published version, we can see it from here, and what are the processes involved in that particular product. So in the earlier scenario where Sami showcased how a purchase order is created within the platform and the associated processes involved in the purchase order. So for example, once the purchase order is created, we can go in and create the shipments and subsequently all the related processes associated with that end-to-end transaction altogether. So here we can see that the list of processes we have created for this particular product. So we can create and manage all the products or the processes which are part of that end-to-end transaction involved in this standard operating procedure or the use cases you are enrolled to model in the platform. And also you have an option to switch between the process view and the product view, where we can the customers are using this to see the end-to-end product modeling as well as how the each individual process is modeled. So if you can click on the product view, you can see the end-to-end process involved in this particular product. So for example, here you can see that the process starts from the purchase order. Once the purchase order is created, you can create the customer can create the shipment load, and once the shipment load is created, they can start creating the goods receipt. Similarly, when on a parallel manner, the performa invoice can be also started from the purchase order. So this is the end-to-end view of what the product will be delivered. So we can define how these processes are linked together. We can stitch together these processes and build the end-to-end product so that we can identify like the life cycle of a particular transaction, how it happens, and who are all involved and how the process works. So we have the option to switch between these process and the product view. So I'll go back to the process view, and also we have the option to see the versions which we have created so far. So this basically ensures how we control the changes made in or the customization we made in the particular product. We can version it like the major version, minor version, or patch version. We can create it based on the changes we are doing or the customization, the amount of customization we are doing on that particular product. And if you can switch back to product view, you can see that we have the option to publish it. So which means that once your changes are done, you can just simply publish it and then deploy it. So we'll get to that later part of this particular session. So if you go back to the process view, as you can see, the purchase order. So purchase order is one process involved with end-to-end transaction in this particular product. So before coming into this workspace, the one prerequisite we have to do is like the 5-step process which Shine said in the earlier session, where the first step would be the business domain modeling, which is basically the initial step which we need to do before doing this product building activity. So once you have identified the process or the how the product should be behaving in the actual scenario, we can model it from a business point of view, where we have created the BPMN designs, and there is a basic designs which we follow. Our customer follows to create these workflows. And once that is done, the next step would be identifying or converting that BPMN flow into a BDD format, where the behavioral driven development which we identify, the states which are involved in that, the event producers or the participants who are involved in that particular process, and also the actions or the events which trigger these transitions. So basically, our ultimate aim from the step 1 and step 2 of the 5-step process would be creating the state machine. So we use this, Indus tool to create the state machine, identify the participants, how we define the state transitions, how we input the business rules for each transition, and then how the data is fetched or converted from one process to another. All those information will be done using the Indus process. So the customers will be using, like the modelers who are our customers will be using that in order to identify how these processes stitch together from one end to the another end. So likewise, we have showcasing a sample process for the purchase order. As you can see, we can switch between different processes as well. Based on the different processes, the participants can change, the workflow can change, and everything can be defined in the Indus tool itself. So for example, in the purchase order, as you can see, there are different components involved in building this particular process altogether. So first one would be the event producers or the participant, where we define all the participants. So after the BDD activity, we can identify who are the participants. So you can simply come in here and add those participants here. You can always have the option to choose these event producers from the list of available event producers, or you can create a new one from this Indus tool itself. So once that is done, you have identified the participant. The next step would be creating the form. So basically, in the initial session where Samir showcased the actual platform or the product to you guys, is that there is a form associated with each process, which is basically given to capture the data which is as part of a particular process. For example, in the case of purchase order, there will be a defined set of fields which the customers needs to capture as part of creating this purchase order workflow. So like for the demo purpose, I have created a sample form or this schema as we call it, which will have these different set of fields which is used to create these purchase order workflow. So this is essentially what we use to in the actual product, which will help us to capture this data, and how this form is created is using this schema builder. So as you can see in the left side menu, there is a lots of tools available to build this particular schema. So there is a text field, integer, decimal, drop downs, email. These are different set of types available, so that you can create this particular form altogether. And also we have an option to preview this form. So if you can click on the preview form, you can see different fields which you have added in the schema. This will give you a real-time preview of how the form should be displayed in the actual product itself. So it will be easier for you to configure this form, identify the fields and identify the field types which needs to be configured, or the calculations or the logics we need to build in this particular form. Now all of this can be achieved using this schema builder. And for example, if I just take a, we can easily drag and drop these fields here. We can just put the name here. You can add the text you want to show in the field title. Once you have confirmed it, you can see that the new field has been added in the form. And if you go to the preview form, you can directly see that there is a form here. And likewise, we can create different fields here. We can, when you click on the edit button, we can configure the behavior of each field. For example, in this case, this is a data field. This is the data involved in this particular field. Like the text field, we can define the minimum length and the maximum length of a particular field. We can build in the logic as well. So, for example, if you choose the value-based logic, we have a preset rules which we have created for defining these logics in the platform. So for example, if you want to copy a value from another value, we can define that. We can define the source and the target here. And also we can do the calculation part. We can build in this calculation in the platform, so that, for example, in the case of a price calculation, we can add these values, and we can put in the formula there, and the form will automatically calculate when the user input those values. So those information we can put it in this platform. For example, I'll just showcase it to you a sample field here. So here you can see the logics has been sorry. So likewise we can like add different default values which need to be shown in the form. Those things can be added here, and it will give you a real-time preview of how the form will look like and what is the logics which we have built in the a particular form can be achieved using this schema builder. And once you have done it, you can save it and you can move it to the next stage, where the next stage would be the building the workflow. So at the end of the BDD workflow, you have understood who are the participants, or what are the stages or the states involved, and the transition which need to be identified, or the actions which need to be performed by the participant. So once that is done, we will straight move away to the creating the state machine. So this is where we create the state machine. So as you can see, this is a sample state machine we have created for the purchase order. So likewise in the last slide, which showcased by Shine, there is a state machine here showcased where the ledger and off ledger actions are how it will trigger the transition as well. So as you can see here, these are the states. Square boxes are considered as the states, and the oval boxes are considered as the events which trigger this transition. So likewise, we can create these, workflow within the index. We can add new state transitions. You can link between different state transitions, and sorry. And each states have different definitions. We can provide it here. For example, if I edit that particular state, you can see that there are certain set of attributes which we capture as part of creating this particular state. For example, how the label should be shown in the UI. So if you have seen the demo of the product, you can see there are certain status shown in the UI. So these status are considered as the labels, where we can define at which stage you are in. You can easily identify using the labels. You can define the label here. You can select the type of state. For example, it is whether it is an initial type, or if it is a terminating, or it's a final state. We can define the type of that particular state, and we can also define the milestone of that particular state. So here you can see that milestone types is actually the timeline tracker which we are showing in the product article. So what does this mean, guys? We can define what are the states needs to be shown in the timeline tracker, so that the user can identify what are the milestones he has completed, and what are the milestones he needs to address, or what the actions he needs to do to achieve that particular milestone. So defining the milestone can be done using these information. And next thing would be the status, where we are actually giving the user the help description. So if the user in a particular state, we are giving that help, that at what stage are you in, and what are the next state he can go proceed to the next stage. What are the things he need to do, what are the action he needs to do. All these things can be added here, so that the information will be articulated in the UI itself. So likewise, we can define the state definition, and the next thing would be the defining the the action definition. So if you can go to the edit option. So for example, here I have created like the create purchase order, which is an action triggered by the user. So similar to the state transition or the state definition, you have the event definition as well. So we can create the label. So in the demo where Samir showcased, there is a contextual menu there, and if you click on that, choose an action item from that contextual menu, you will get a certain set of actions or the events you can trigger from that particular state. So likewise, you can define what are the actions from this from that particular state the user can trigger, and the label which we are showing in the UI will be defined as per here. And you can define the type as well. So there are a certain set of pre-created event types as well. So for example, like edit AE, doc upload, copy AE, document generation, amend AE, all these types which will help the user to define the behavior of each events in a state transition. And few other things would be the on ledger and the critical action. So on ledger flag is something which we give to that particular action if that particular action needs to be on ledger, which means that is a blockchain action. So we have the control over whether these actions are blockchain or not, and that can be configured from the index itself. And also the critical action is something if we used to articulate the pending action basically. So for example, in an enterprise, there are certain set of departments there, and those departments are needed to act on a specific state where their action needs to be addressed. Shown to the UI that these are the critical actions to that particular department, so that the next department can take over it from that. So likewise, we can define the critical action particular to the user using this configurable flag. So we can ensure that these flags are enabled, and the user when the user has access to a particular state, and if this action is critical to them, the system will show that this is a pending action from your side, and we can easily notify that this action needs to be performed, and in order to proceed further on the particular transaction. And similar to the state help, we can also add the event help description as well, which will help the user to identify what are the next stage and what this action perform, and all those information can be added or configured from this particular tool. So likewise, we'll have the option to define the end-to-end workflow. These events are triggered to transition each state, and the similar workflow. This is a visualizer where we can visualize how the workflow will be simulating. And also, if we go back to the tabular view, we can see all the information in a tabular manner. And if you can see that there are few other attributes which are added in the tabular manner, like the guard, or what we call it the business role as guards. So if the user want to add a guard here, you can. This is one of the low code element in the platform where the user can simply create these guards and or the business rules, and save it for that particular transaction. For example, in this case, as you can see, the purchase order is in an approved state, and the exporter is trying to create a shipment log. So the guard which we have provided here is that if the user creates the shipment log, it should be like the total price of the particular shipment should be less than or equal to the total price of the purchase order. So if we create the multiple shipment loads, and then the sum total of all the shipment loads should be less than or equal to the purchase order. So these kinds of business rule can be added in the platform, which will help the user to define the entire process altogether. And likewise, we can stitch between different workflows together by using the linked action, where we can create or stitch together one process to another. So here, as you can see, purchase order is one process, and then there is a separate process called shipment for creating the shipment log. So you can stitch together these shipment and the purchase order processes using a linked action. And also there is an option called notify option, where you can define the how the notifications are sent for that particular transition. So for example, we'll have the option to send an email when that particular action is triggered, or we can always ask for the push notification in the platform, and also we have the option to select the SMS as well. So these are the different set of configurable notification options available in the platform as part of Index configuration tool. So likewise, we can define the end-to-end transition. So the stage one would be the business domain modeling. The next stage would be defining the states, the actions, and the participants. So these are the different set of we have covered the stage one and stage two, and to move on to the stage two, there are one extra item we have. This is state access information. So this state access information is essentially a smart contract implementation where we have put in, so that we can ensure that the three attributes which we are capturing as part of the smart contract, that is the invisibility, mandatory, and the immutability part. So for example, as you can see, these are the fields which we have defined as part of the schema builder, and we can see that there is a state selection and the role selection. So what this essentially means that we'll have the control at a particular state for a particular role on all the at schema or the fields which you have created as part of the schema builder. So basically, this means that if the user want or the importer want to make a field mandatory. For example, in this case, we can always make the field mandatory for the order date and the order type in a particular state, and for that particular user, you can do that here. And likewise, we can make this field invisible. For example, if the user want to make this field invisible for the particular user, we can do that. So there is a scenario where the currently our customer uses, like for an LC application, the banks are doing some background verification. So these background checks are hidden for the applicant. So only the bank can see these particular fields. So these fields can be made invisible using this particular form. So like when the applicant is in that particular state, he will not be able to see these fields, which is basically available only for the bank user. So likewise, we have the control over how these fields can be visible or not visible to a particular role. And likewise, we'll have the important part for immutability. So in a ledger transaction, when data points are captured and added in the ledger, there are scenarios where the user want to make it immutable, which means those fields are not editable. So likewise, we can define or after each blockchain action, we can define which are the fields immutable or not. We can define it from the index tool itself. So likewise, we can define each, these three attributes for each fields in the schema. And moving on to the feature attribute mapping, this is something of a, on a process-wise manner where we can define the business identifier of a particular process. So for example, for a purchase order, we can, always go for the, reference ID as the business identifier here. And also we can define which are the listing fields which need to be shown in the UI. So in the listing page, in the actual platform or the product where Samir showcased, there's a list of all the processes, right? So this processor has columns which is configured from Index. So this is configured from here. We can simply select which are the form, fields which need to be shown in the listing field. We can select it. And similarly, the next attribute would be the compliance field, where we can define the whether we need to check for compliance on particular fields. So for example, in the case of a purchase order and the shipment load, we can always go for a, if there are terms and conditions added in the purchase order, which is not, similar to what they have, added in the shipment load, we can always raise a flag that this is not compliant, and it will be highlighted in the platform itself. So likewise, we can define which are the fields which need to be, compared between these, parent and the child linkage. So likewise, we can define these three attributes using the feature attribute mapping. And the next stage would be the transformer spec. So this is the third stage where we are defining the transformer spec, which is also another low-code element in the platform. As you can see, this is JSLT file where we define the data transformation from one asset to another asset. So if you want to capture these data from a purchase order to a shipment load, it is easier in the platform. We can configure what are the data points which we need to map from one asset to another asset. So this will enhance the product asset where the user will have minimal input in the particular process. So for example, in the case of a shipment load, if these information, most of the information will be captured from purchase order, and we can minimize the input on shipment load using this JSLT. So what this basically does is like this will map the fields from the parent asset to the child asset. So as you can see, this is a low code, one of the low code element which we have captured in the platform. This is it's a simple one-to-one mapping for a particular field from the source to the target process. So likewise, we can define the JSLT can be defined for the ERPs as well. So if you want to capture the data from ERP, we can use the JSLT to capture these data points from one ERP to our platform. For example, we capture right now we capture the data points from SAP. While creating a purchase order, we can always have a feature to map certain fields from SAP to our platform. So likewise, we can minimize the user input in our platform using this transformer spec feature. So this is a stage 3 item. And there are certain other elements like the other UI configuration, asset UI configuration. These are some technical items, but I'll just go through the entity listing config, where we can define the search filters in a particular listing field. We can define the define which are the searching attributes which need to be given in the listing page, like the filters and the tabs which we need to show in this listing page. Is there any option to export the list using an Excel file? All those information can be configured from the Index tool, which will give the capability to like configure however they want. The customer will, right now customers are doing this in the platform so that they have the flexibility to do that, configure the processes how they want to show in the listing pages, how the forms are designed in the platform. All those things customer is currently doing using the Index. And one other thing would be an optional stage where we can define the templates as well. So we have an option to define the templates, which is basically an HTML code. Right now, this is one of the low code elements which is in the platform, where we can create these HTML templates in the platform. And when the user comes in and they can generate these templates in the platform itself. So if you want to generate a template, for example, in the case of purchase order, if you want to generate a purchase order template or a report from the platform, you can simply configure this HTML code in here, and then you can simply generate it and download it in the platform itself. So likewise, we have these many attributes associated with each process. And once you have identified all the process and stitched together all the process for the particular product, we can always go to the product view and publish this particular product. So this will help the user to give an end-to-end visualization of how their product needs to be worked in a product manner. So once that is done, we can publish this product, and the next step would be, like as I said earlier, the deployment part. You can always create the deployment from Index itself and deploy to a specific environment which you want to test it out. So likewise, we can define all the configuration and deploy it in the platform. So there is the overall sneak peek on the Index tool. And if you have any questions, I will wait for a few seconds. You can post it on the chat if you have any questions. Also, please feel free to reach out to our team if you have any further clarifications or questions. If you want to learn more about Proteus, we can always go for the 2-day workshop, which is what Samir has mentioned as well. So I think that's it from our side. Thanks for attending the webinar. Thank you.